So I'm going to talk a little bit about this idea of the future of search and of findability and of social interaction and everything, right? And I like thinking about and talking about the future of socio-technical systems, not just because I like the creative and imaginary part of that, of thinking about something that does not yet exist, but also because I think that if you really understand what's going on right now with the system, you should be able to prove that, right? By adequately predicting at least some of the futures. You know, it's not a formula, so you can't predict exactly, but the better you understand today's system, the better you are going to be able to predict what it looks like in 5 years. And, you know, there's other reasons to want to be able to predict that, right? I mean, being able to know where things are going allows you to prepare your environment in a better way. Your business, your organization, it allows you to get ahead of the ball in some sense. So for these reasons, I really like thinking about the future, and I could talk about this for a long time, but I'll try to keep this brief. And to keep it brief, I want to hit on a very old technology. Back in the day, back around the turn of the millennium, you know, if you searched on Google, you had this option, you know, you could hit, "I'm feeling lucky," and nobody that had any kind of brains at all would do that, right? Because what you wanted to see from Google was a range, at least the first 10 hits that it was getting on the results. So you could see which of these documents was most likely able to answer the question that you were trying to address. You weren't going to just trust Google to produce it on the first hit, because all too often that was wrong. I think a lot of what we're doing now is this clickless searching. I think we're moving away to, you know, we're moving from the search and look at the search engine results page and maybe select multiples of those and weigh them, to this idea of a one-click or a no-click search. What does that mean? And I'll note that, you know, a lot of this is predicted in the book, but the book is old now, especially in internet years. And so a lot of the predictions in this chapter are for the future of the internet circa 2016 or 2015 when I was writing this. And so I think I did an okay job of predicting where some of these things were going, but already a lot of that's dated. So now I'm kind of trying to take a new cut on this and saying, okay, looking forward. And one of the things we can see that moves us down this path a little bit is this idea of zero-click or one-click searching. And now if you go to Google and you search, more often you're going to see snippets. You're going to see things that have been extracted from the web that will answer your question directly. So Google itself, as a search engine, has shifted from being something that provides you a bunch of links to a bunch of documents that they think will answer or address your question or your query, and now have moved to the point where they're instead saying, here's the data from those that we've extracted and we think might be useful to you. This is actually a recurrence of an idea that's been around in search for a long time, and I only touch on it briefly in the book because it's often been the purview of information scientists. This dream that I didn't think ever would really happen, called the semantic web or semantic media. And usually what this meant is someone who was constructing a web page would mark it up in such a way that a computer could more easily find pieces of it and use them in various ways. And so, you know, at a very simple level, this is something like indicating when something is a price, right? So if you want to do the Google shopping stuff, it will be able to find the price for you, or indicating when something is a location or a person. So tagging these in such a way that computers can more easily, you know, bring them into something like a person search or a price search, or do some kind of comparison. And, you know, some of this started with Wikipedia, with Google including chunks of Wikipedia, but now it often will pull things from a variety of places. Sometimes it does a really good job of this. Sometimes it really falls on its face when it does this. But more and more, it's trying to make the search engine results page not be links to the resources you might need, but instead the actual answer you want. And I think this is an intermediary step towards this ideal version of the conversational agent. And certainly Google, among others, are working really hard at Lambda and other kinds of approaches to conversational agents. The idea is that eventually you'll have this person you can talk to, and they can act as your kind of personal assistant and give you the information you need, or make some kinds of changes to the environment or arrangements that you might need. And they can do this as well as a human can. Actually, they can do this better than most humans can, because they'll know more about the world than most humans, and they'll know a lot more about you than most humans. I have a friend who has a personal assistant that's been with her since she was a baby. She started out as her nanny and now she's her personal assistant. And you can't, in real life, you can't really find people that know you that well. But the idea is you would have a personal assistant that would know you so well that they would be able to anticipate what you're about to ask in many cases, or at the very least could limit the world of answers to the ones that they've inferred you want. In the case of Google, it's a one-click, but I think we're moving more and more towards this zero-click, right? Towards this idea of it doing that. And this is, again, something Google has always said, that they want to be able to answer a question before you know you have it. And I think we see some of that in people wondering whether their phones are listening to them. Like they will suddenly be advertised to about something that they had just had an occasional thought about. And so they assume that somehow that someone is listening in on their phones and has anticipated what their real needs are. I think anyone who has tried to interact with Siri or with Alexa knows that it's just not that good at picking up what you're actually saying. I think that that's probably overestimating what it can do, but underestimating how well they've modeled you as a potential consumer. So anytime you've thought about something and searched for it, suddenly they know you have some desire towards that. And even if you haven't looked for that exact thing, even if, for example, I've been searching for vacations to Fiji, they might correctly assume that I would be also interested in maybe a vacation to Bora Bora, right? So they can make some assumptions about other people who are like me and have the same interests that I do, might have interests in this thing as well. They know me really, really well, right? And so I think that is really kind of the direction in which we're going. And the ways in which these technologies can know me are increasing really at a breakneck pace. I think we could talk a little bit about IoT and some of the ways in which the internet is really kind of seeping into so many different things and can identify you in so many new kinds of ways. So far, the bottleneck, in the past, the bottleneck has been getting that data. Now that's not the bottleneck. The bottleneck is not acquiring information about you. That is a flood, and that flood will increase over time. The problem is making sense of that and modeling it well enough to really predict the kinds of knowledge you don't have and that you might need, and then providing that to you. And so I think the future of search is nothing like sitting down at a search engine. I think that's the very rare and unusual case. And I have very young teenage kids who, and frankly, they don't have to be young teenage kids. Many of you probably have never used a card catalog at a library. They're getting old enough now that it is something you might see in a movie if you're lucky there, though you don't see a lot of people using card catalogs in movies. It's kind of a technology that's gone, and I suspect that you will find that as we get on here, that people will not have this experience of using a search engine and then searching through the documents it produces. I think we're going to grow to expect the search appliances, however they appear to us, either as conversational agents in voice or as little artificial beings that are in AR, or as faces on screens. However these appear to us, whatever the interface is, the expectation will be that you can ask them a question and they'll give you the answer, the thing that you would have been searching through the documents for. Obviously, this works better for some kinds of answers. Like if I want to know what Istanbul used to be called, it's going to be able to tell me that, right? I can ask my device and it will tell me what the answer to that is because it's a factual question. Or if I want to know when the local In-N-Out opens, when those are questions that are fairly straightforward about facts, then it's easier. When it's a question about a very complicated scientific question, for example, or sociological question or theological question, I think more and more the search engines will be able to address those things as well, which is kind of the more shocking piece here. And I think that as they do that, we have to become more and more concerned about how they're coming up with those answers and how much we should and can trust in them to do that, and then what we can do about it if we don't. So I think the kinds of questions that we've been asking throughout the semester will become more acute rather than less as these technologies become more adept. All right, thank you.